The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Rudy's revelation.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about another mass shooting and what exactly that means. So welcome to the episode today. It is July 29th, Tuesday. Welcome. Appreciate you being here. So today we're going to be talking about the Blackstone shooting conspiracy. It's actually, to be honest with you, it's actually an assassination attempt in my review of the facts so far, and there's a lot kicking around, and so we're going to address all that, mostly the factual stuff, but we already got a cover story that's coming out that may or may not be true. I tend not to believe cover stories for a lot of simple reasons, because and I'm very suspect of all these types of shootings and stuff like that. You know, you get into what is basically the unfolding of a crime scene. So when you have unfolding of a crime scene, you have reports coming out right away. And with this specific incident, you had many of the same anomalies that you have in other mass shootings that go all the way back practically to Columbine. So we're going to get to all of that and more, plus some other headlines as well. So why don't we kick it off right away with getting into this? I'm going to call it the Blackstone shooting. Other people are calling it a New York City mass shooting, or it's going to be referred to probably as an NFL shooting. But let's get into that right now. Right, we're going to start out with a Just the News headline. New York City shooter left suicide note saying he had CTE, critical of NFL, asking to have brain studied. Now, what exactly does all this mean? Well, we're going to get into that in just a second. New York Post. Gunman Shane Tamura used Palmetto State AR-15 massacre at Midtown skyscraper. Now, this is the New York Post, so take a long look at this headline here. What the fuck does Palmetto State Armory, which is a gun store in Florida that is probably the preeminent gun store online, the fact that they sold this guy an AR-15 when he lived in Las Vegas, what exactly did this have anything to do with the shooting itself, particularly if he obtained the firearm legally? Now, I'm going to go off onto a little bit of a tangent here, but what we first need to do is take a closer look at the crime itself. So let's go to the AP. Gunman kills 4, including police officer, in shooting at New York City office tower. And the Associated Press doesn't use the name Blackstone. Why is that? The gunman, identified by authorities as Shane Tamura of Las Vegas, has a documented mental health history, according to Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, but his motive was still unknown. The Wall Street Journal reports Blackstone executive and NYPD officer among 4 killed in Midtown office shooting spree. Police found suicide note with gunman in which he said he believed he had CTE, which is a a brain disease, encephalopathy, that is caused by concussion, repeated trauma to your head, and most notably occurs in boxers and in football players. And he appeared to be targeting the NFL, Mayor Eric Adams says. Well, so I'm already having some problems with this whole thing. All right, and I'm going to get into it now because there are too many fucking things here. First of all, like in most mass shootings, the guy was alarmingly calm, right? And so what we'll probably find out is that he planned this for some time. Okay, so let's start with the cover story. The cover story is already emerging very quickly because immediately they announced that the NFL had offices on the 33rd floor. Going to get to the number 33 in just a second. So hold on just a second here. So apparently the NFL is reporting that one of their employees was seriously injured or killed. The Wall Street Journal reported that a Blackstone executive was also killed. Now they're failing to admit right now during the cover story leak, this is how it happens. And just let's take the Jeffrey Epstein files as a template. What they do, the corporate fascists, the elite, whatever you want to call them, the deep state, take out what you don't want publicized, put in what you do. So apparently he left a note after he killed himself, but there are already problems with the guy who killed himself. And I'm going to get to that picture, I guess, in just a second, because apparently he shot himself in the chest, but there was no pool of blood, and it was a white floor. So it's hard to imagine that this guy shot himself and that he's not laying in a pile of blood. First problem on first sight. So then we have the New York Post uncharacteristically saying, and in all early reports, as I listened to them come out last night, is an automatic AR-15. Must have been repeated like 20 times. First of all, it wasn't an automatic weapon. It was a semi-automatic rifle, AR-15. But why that's of importance is questionable. So we already have pushing of anti-gun rhetoric even before we even knew who the guy was or why he did this or anything. Early surveillance footage was leaked of this guy, and that indeed was a problem of him calmly walking into the building, holding his rifle by his side, in an effort to conceal it, somewhat. Now, if you were really worried about it, you could have a sawed-off shotgun under your coat. He was wearing a jacket. Or a pistol. Or two pistols. Why you would carry a rifle into a building to kill people or to kill yourself is illogical, especially a rifle at that type. Now, if anybody knows anything about firearms, rifles are used to engage your enemy, adversaries, at great distances. Now, if you're in the service, let's say, that's your main weapon. Okay, so if you're going into a building, you're not going to change weapons or anything. So you need a weapon that it can engage the enemy at great distances, but also be used indoors. But if you were going into a building to create havoc and shoot people within 10 or 20 feet, a pistol would do just as well. Also, you could conceal a pistol, etc. All right. New York City mass shooter Shane Tamura found with note blaming NFL for giving him CTE, even though he never played pro football. Okay, that's one of the first anomalies we have here. Never played pro football. He's blaming the NFL. He played high school football, apparently. He didn't even play college. And that he was a standout player, which is great. But apparently his life spiraled out of control, as many young people with promise, their lives do, when they realize, when they get into the real world, that maybe they were the best, smartest kid in their high school, or most athletic, or the most popular, or whatever. But then you get out of that microcosm and you get into the world, and people treat you like you're just another Joe, which you are for all intents and purposes. The mentally ill shooter wanted to shoot up the NFL HQ. Now, this is the New York Post, which I usually like. Now, it shows the picture there. It has it blurred out. Why they have his leg blurred out is another question. And there's some questions here about the photo itself. Now, is that his other leg, or is that a pool of blood? But if we look closely at this photo, let's look closely. Where's his head and his body? See what I'm saying? It looks like it's in the partition. And I guess that's not his other leg. I don't know. It looked like his other leg when I saw the photo unblurred. So it looks like you could see the bullet casing there. It's hard to determine exactly what this is. Is that blood seeping out from him that they blurred out? Possibly. But it's kind of weird that you don't see his torso. You just see his lower torso. Seems very strange. Just to look at this photo. Just to put that out there for now. So there's another anomaly. Did the guy shoot himself in the chest? Maybe. Why, shooting yourself in the chest with a rifle? Okay, he wanted to preserve his brain for CTE. A lot of things just aren't adding up because he didn't make it to the NFL offices. Now, Mayor Adams is saying that he went to the 33rd floor by mistake. Maybe. Let's go back to his note. He wrote, Terry Long and football gave me CTE, and it caused me to drink a gallon of antifreeze, the note stated. You can't go against the NFL. They'll squash you. Please study brain for CTE. I'm sorry, the league knowingly concealed the dangers to our brains to maximize profits. They failed us. This note seems wrong. Did he have mental health issues? I'm not doubting that he didn't. He wrote addressing Terry Long, the former Pittsburgh Steelers player who was diagnosed with CTE after downing antifreeze to kill himself 20 years ago. The note seems convoluted, and it looks like this is apparent misdirection. So if the note is planted and the guy was actually shot, Could have been shot somewhere else and his body dumped there. My problem too is, and we saw this with Sandy Hook, is that if you look at the car outside the building, it had the driver door and the passenger door open, which is indicative of two passengers exiting the vehicle very quickly. Okay, also, witnesses stated they saw a shooter wearing body armor. There's no evidence, clear evidence, that Tamura was wearing body armor. And in initial reports, it said that a shooter dressed in tactical gear was doing the shooting, and that he was wearing a hat and a mask and efforts to conceal his identity, as well as sunglasses. So I already have problems with this whole story, and especially with some media outlets that I like. Zero Hedge says Manhattan skyscraper gunman, doesn't say Blackstone gunman, kills 4, misses NFL target in botched attack. Botched attack. He killed a Blackstone executive. He killed a policeman. It was botched attack if you believe the note. That he went to the wrong elevator bank, which I guess is an express. And instead of realizing, hey, I made a mistake, I can't go to, because the NFL offices were on the 6th or the 5th through 8th floors, instead of going back down and taking a local, he gets off at the 33rd floor. Again, no mention of Blackstone being on that floor and its symbolic significance. And then where was the Blackstone executive killed? And where was the NFL employee killed? Apparently, most of the people killed were killed in the lobby. Now, if he goes up to the 33rd floor, murders one person, and then kills himself, maybe it's mission accomplished. So if you botched your attack, why would you kill yourself then? If you went on a mission, and it seems like he was mind controlled because he wasn't acting severely agitated, he was very calm. And then at the end, code word maple syrup or whatever, code word maple, and you blow your brains out. Or in this instance, he doesn't blow his brains out because it's not part of the plan. All right, now let's get into the symbology first of all. All right, first of all, Blackstone. If anybody knows what the Kaaba is, the Blackstone and the Egyptian black capstone, the Kaaba, and this is from from last year, 8-10 months ago, on a mysticism site. So you want to learn about symbology. If you don't know what the Kaaba is, it's supposedly the rock where Muhammad ascended to heaven or something like that, or whatever it is. But it's covered in a black cube, a shroud, and then they talk about the Blackstone and the Egyptian black capstone, which is what Blackstone is. Unveiling ancient cosmic connections, the Kaaba, the Blackstone, and the black capstone of the Great Pyramid of Giza are all fundamental symbols within their respective spiritual traditions, mysticism. The Blackstone and the Kaaba are cosmic portals. And so there's Blackstone references on and on again. The stone of foundation, the importance in mysticism and Freemasonry particularly involve references to foundation stones, keystones, and capstones, blackstones, etc. Ancient Egypt Online states Dashur, the Black Pyramid of Amenemhat III, The first pyramid built by Amenemhat of the Middle Kingdom. So he built this terrible pyramid too close to the Nile, and so it sunk and was destroyed. But there's a reference there. Referencing capstones. The pyramidion, or pyramidia in plural, is the capstone of the Egyptian pyramid or the upper section of an obelisk, which is a pyramid also. Pyramidia as Ben Benet. He associated the pyramid as the whole with the sacred Ben stone. So the capstone is a little pyramid on top of a giant pyramid. And it has symbolic, at the very least, if not metaphysical or mystical significance. Okay, let's go to 33. Freemasonry. What does 33 number mean in Freemasonry? It's the Master Mason's number. The number 33 has been used by Freemasons since at least the 18th century. When it was mentioned in the Masonic ritual, it is believed to have symbolic meaning. And there are several theories about the meaning could be. One popular one is that 33 years that Jesus Christ lived on earth before his crucifixion. The theory suggesting that the number 33 represents perfection, since Jesus was seen as being perfect. Also, 33 is doubling 3. 3 is significant because of the Trinity. And in Freemasonry, the Trinity is unity, harmony, and brotherhood. Valley of Nashville, the 33-degree Freemasonry explained. A guide to esteem Scottish rite. They don't say anything here. They don't explain what 33 means. They just say the 33 degree is the highest. All right, let's go on to the next headline here. And this is from 2022. Fact check. Did asset manager Blackstone buy Americans' DNA? Here's part of the issue with Blackstone. All right. Blackstone, back in 2020, bought Ancestry.com. But there's a problem with Ancestry.com and whether or not people have access to your genetics. If you ever went with 23andMe or one of these sites, never give your genetics to anybody. The state or a private company, which is really the same thing. Newsweek goes on to show the Bloomberg article on the deal. Blackstone reaches $4.7 billion deal to buy Ancestry.com. The firm will take about a 75% ownership stake in the Utah-based firm. Alternative asset manager has a $156 billion cash pile. An investigation by fact-checker Snopes in 2017 concluded that while signing up for Ancestry.com's DNA test would not mean the company would own your DNA data in a complete and permanent way, customers would still have a license that information to the company. So it's not like you're free and clear. Customers could still choose to not have their genetic information shared for certain purposes, so you have to tick a box. You own your DNA data, and you could ask us to remove it from our systems at any time. We don't keep copies, but they do point out that data about you could become public as a result of a security breach. When biological samples are physically transferred from us to collaborators, whatever that means, there is a potential risk that the samples could be lost or stolen while in transit or storage. Okay, next. Hackreed, from July of that year, right before they acquired the company, software firm leaks 25 gigabytes worth of subscription and Ancestry.com user data. Was the genetic maps that are associated with genetics was that part of the user data that was leaked? And that's the thing about, we would never share your data, but we could leak it. Blackstone completes acquisition of Ancestry.com, leading online family history business for $4.7 billion. $4.7 billion. That's a lot of fucking money for a genetic map company. You understand what I'm saying? You're just supposed to relay the genetic ancestral markers in your genetic map. How is that worth $4.7 billion? Is anybody clear on that? So we're not even clear on that. So Blackstone, which has, you could call it metaphysical, but connections, symbolic connections to mysticism. The shooting happened on the 33rd floor, which relates to Freemasonry. So yeah, Blackstone, which relates to Freemasonry. You have 33, which relates to Freemasonry. You have another you have another mass shooting by somebody who was weak, mentally ill. We don't know if he was on pharmaceuticals or not. And as I have speculated forever, mass shootings never happened, or were so rare they almost never happened until the advent of the internet and when it exploded. So now my speculation is that mentally online people are gang stalked by intelligent sock puppets. As I said yesterday, they go into places like they hack into mental health portals to find out who's mentally ill, and then they could stalk these people, find a willing candidate, and then nurture them along, control their mind, basically, and lead them into a fruitive state of their suicidal or homicidal ideation, which occurred because of their mental illness or because of the drugs they were taking for their mental illness. Vice also has the story. A private equity firm bought Ancestry and its trove of DNA for about $4.7 billion. And before I get into Dan Bongino, I need to reiterate something here. That is the people, I believe, in my opinion, the intelligence agencies, all of them, allies, enemies, domestic, are involved and have been involved in mind manipulation, thought control, mind control, particularly of individuals, to create the Manchurian candidate, the witting or unwitting assassin, and they become very good at it. They can control people enough through pharmakia and online nudging, prodding, mind control, to get them to carry out heinous acts. So my take on this is that this is an assassination of a Blackstone executive masked as another mentally ill, but a mentally ill person and not, and then you throw in the cover story, which is, I think I have CTE and I was there to shoot up the NFL. I didn't even go to the NFL offices. I went to Blackstone offices and killed one executive and then shot myself. And then have this cover story. And there's significance because of Blackstone and the 33rd floor. So for those of you who aren't initiated, things that hold symbolic significance are for the initiated. Most of the people looking at the story aren't going to gravitate to it. Or maybe it's meant to be there for conspiracy theorists to gravitate to. So when Dan Bongino, and this is from PJ Media, talks about I'll never be the same, Bongino dishes on FBI secrets that shook him. First of all, this article by Matt Margolis of PJ Media didn't reveal anything we didn't know already. It just says what the FBI was involved with shook him to his core. And what the FBI was involved with was secret intelligence programs involving mind control and the bending of reality and all these things. And when I say the bending of reality, I mean that reality can be pre-programmed and influenced through media and through people doing different things. And just things simply as publishing things across the mainstream media board. All right, back to regular, and my parting thought in all of this is like, I don't believe in mass shootings, and they never have a motive. And then mysteriously, this one has a motive, and the last few have seemed to be motivated, but before that, they could never find a motive. All these things bother me intensely, and I don't think that this one. I think this motive is a red herring, is a cover story. And, I think this guy was recruited because of his mental illness to carry out an assassination with a cover story of wanting to attack the NFL. Even though he never played in the NFL, I don't think he ever played college ball either. So, and apparently because he had a couple concussions when he was in high school playing football, and then he believed he had CTE, there's no, I don't think there's any medical evidence that he did. That he believed he had CTSD. Oh, and he had mental illness, of course. Well, people that have brain disease are mentally ill. Most people are mentally ill. There's a certain amount of psychopathy that everybody enjoys. People are mentally ill. This thing that people aren't mentally ill. Everybody has a certain degree of mental illness, whether it's mania or paranoia or what have you, or compulsive or obsessive disorders or DID. I mean, the list is expansive. All right, let's get to some news. New York Times says Powell is under siege as Fed plans to stand pat on rate cuts, according to the New York Times. Actually, Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, is facing relentless attacks from the president because the president wants the board to cut rates. A lively campaign to replace him and divisions in his own ranks over when to cut interest rates. Well, of course. When should we cut interest rates? The fact is that's what it says the Fed plans to stand pat. And then they just said there are divisions in the ranks of the board of whether we should be cutting rates now or not. If we get another, inflation report, CPI, that still shows the inflation rate in the 2 point something, if it goes to 2.8 or comes down a little bit more, I think it's going to come down a little bit more. They need to cut rates. If they keep waiting till it hits 2, we're going to head into economic problems. We need to spur growth. And the big, beautiful bill will help that. But we really need interest rates cut. The trade deals with Europe are going to help too. But we need the growth to not just be on Wall Street, to be to other places as well. Speaking of Wall Street, the Wall Street Journal, $85 billion creates America's first coast-to-coast rail operator with Union Pacific, Norfolk Southern deal. Union Pacific, Norfolk Southern deal, a single company would control coast-to-coast rail shipments for the first time in history. So it's a monopoly. We don't like monopolies here. So for twice the amount that you paid for, more than half the amount, you would pay for a rail merger, which involves lots of equipment and rail and infrastructure and employees and all these sorts of things for this vast corporation, rail corporation. You would pay about twice as much. For a little more than half of that, you can buy a DNA company. Is that a DNA mapping company? Does that even make sense? That you would pay almost $50 billion for a DNA? Hey, man. Do that many people map their DNA? There's something else to that story. More news from Just the News. Senator Josh Hawley introduces legislation to send $600 tariff rebate checks to Americans. This is great news. Whether the bill passes or not is unknown. And to be honest, $600 checks, one-time payment, okay, whatever. The only thing it would do, it would help Republicans if you're sharing some of the dividend from the tariffs. I think that would help people. I think it would be more psychological than actual financial. That $600, that's like what you got during COVID. But it would be symbolic, and I think that would be a smart move. Whether it passes or not, I don't know. Do I support it? $600 is going to help me. A one-time payment. All right, and now I want to get to leftist violence because there was a disturbing video over the weekend that I saw that came out of, I believe it was Cincinnati, Ohio, where white jazz festival patrons were exiting the festival and were ganged up on by black urban dwellers who decided to try to rob these white people. And that despite the guy being pretty tall and immense, the white guy, he got pummeled by a gang of 50 or 100 people. But I want to start with this story from One American News. Michigan Democrat City Councilman Leon L. Alameen charged after being accused of assaulting woman, dragging her by her hair. All right, so if you're going to rob somebody and you end up beating them to death because they refuse to be robbed, okay, whatever. But if you're a city councilman and you don't know that touching someone unwantingly or committing what is clearly assault or dragging a woman by her hair, acting violently on another human being, that's assault, right? And so you should have no position in politics whatsoever. If you're a politician, no matter at what level, you should know the difference between law and unlawful. So, and there should be no tolerance for people in any political position violating the law, because you know better. Technically, you're a lawmaker, and you should certainly know better. But my problem is with assault, and this tends to be a lot with black folks, is that, well, they made me mad. There's no court is going to listen to the incitement of your violent behavior. And black folks tell me this all the time. If I do something lawful that they don't like, they think they should be able to hurt me. What? That is the most fucked up thing I've ever heard. When I was in media and I was conducting my lawful media business, that people would come up and threaten me. Or say shit like, if you take my picture, I'm going to break your camera and have people hurt you. What the fuck is that? Those type of people should be expelled from the country. If you can't live by the laws of the United States, I mean, I'm not talking about jaywalking, spitting on the ground, or let's say speeding. That doesn't result in an accident. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things like assault and stealing. That's obvious. All right, let's get to this video. I'm not going to show it, but I'll tell you what it was. Post-millennial, 5 alleged assailants charged in brutal mob attack at Cincinnati Music Fest. Only one witness out of 100 called 911. Of course not, because they don't snitch. The police chief told reporters that there were around 100 people at the scene of the brawl, either involved in it, watching it, or filming the attacks, and only one of those people called 911. You believe that? And this big, huge white guy was beaten repeatedly. Punched in the face, punched in the back of the head, kicked. When he was on the ground, kicked in the head, stomped on the head. And then when I think it was his girlfriend went to try to pull people off him to stop the attack, after the attack had been going on for 5 minutes, she got punched in the face and knocked unconscious by I believe it was a man. I mean, what kind of savagery is this? Where you can't walk down a city street without being attacked by a mob, and by a mob. That's what socialism is all about. Mobs. 5 people have been charged in their involvement in a violent assault in Cincinnati over the weekend, during which 2 people were seen being brutally assaulted. Police chief says she is trying to identify 8 more folks involved in the attack. Also from Post Millennial, another headline: Planned Parenthood to shutter massive Houston abortion clinic after Congress slashes funding. This is massive news for the pro-life movement and shows the direction Planned Parenthood is going, which is down. And that's important, that it's going down. I think. That's my personal conviction. I do believe abortions should be legal, but rare. But this is violence anyway. The black people should be less concerned of white people exiting a jazz festival and more concerned with Planned Parenthood being in inner city neighborhoods killing black fetuses. All right, moving on to other headlines. The Federalist, here's how the media are lying right now, Conspiracy Theories edition. And we did have a little conspiracy theory there about, with the New York Times, already talking about several different things, which, the thing about the New York Times is they're just not honest. You have to be honest about what you're reporting. The Fed board, first they said Jerome Powell isn't responsible for lowering rates. It's the board of directors at the Federal Reserve. And then they say the Fed is going to stand pat. And then in the same sentence, they say the Federal Reserve is split on whether to lower interest rates or not. Are they going to stand pat, or are they split? So there's obviously some issue there. There are 2 facts that are not in contention with one another. President Trump concealing the extent of his past relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is a conspiracy theory. Another conspiracy theory is that Trump's Democratic predecessor, Barack Obama, deliberately sabotaged Trump's first term in office with fabricated intel. The difference between these 2 conspiracy theories is one is an actual theory and the other is backed by overwhelming evidence. But the news media, like the New York Times, portrays them as the same. The treasonous behavior by the intel community under Barack Obama, obviously election interference and subverting the will of the people is treasonous in a republic. And whether or not Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein, obviously, but whether or not he was involved in, the evidence shows clearly that once he knew of Jeffrey Epstein's MO, or his taste for young girls, that he was like, you're out of here. Next headline from the Federalist: Russiagate wouldn't have been possible without the complicit on the propaganda press. It's been the case the past few weeks. Leftist media scrambled to bury newly declassified materials showing how the Obama administration manufactured evidence to advance the false claim that Russia wanted Donald Trump to win the 2016 election. The records not only expose the intentional manipulation of intelligence to push this basic conspiracy theory and the overarching Trump-Russia collusion hoax, but the participation of President Obama and his intel chiefs in fomenting the scheme to delegitimize Trump's 2016 victory and subsequent presidency. The fact is that the media plays along because it's the corporate oligarchs that are driving all this deep state behavior. It's not these bureaucrats that are ideologues that feel that they need to do X, Y, Z. Maybe they're unwittingly helping the corporate oligarchs. But you have the news media, which is run by corporations, and the federal government, which is heavily influenced by corporations and their minions inside the government. Why you come up with this anti-populist conspiracy. Then you have places like Issues and Insights, Treason, Epstein, and Distractions, a guide for the perplexed. The only thing perplexing is that Trump wasn't originally in the Epstein files. If he was, it was just in a peripheral way. But as I mentioned in the beginning, the whole theme of today's episode is that what the media and just intel agencies propagandists do is take out what you don't want shown and put in what you do want shown. Exaggerate what you do want shown, whether it's a cover story, completely fake, or it's bits and pieces of the truth, and hide what you don't want shown. And so you see that in the Blackstone mass killings this past weekend. You see it in Russiagate. You see it in Epstein. You see it in everything. It's just basic media spin, if you want to call it that. And related to that, PJ Media reports the John Bolton connection to the Steele dossier. Now, I don't need to go into this story, but you know that John Bolton is a deep state actor. So he's also under investigation by the Justice Department for his involvement in pushing this, because he is a neocon, along in the intel community. Also, once he joined the Trump administration in his first term, Trump's first term, is he had John Bolton come on as a hawk to scare other countries, but John Bolton was acting as a mole for the intelligence communities. But the problem is that they have nothing on Trump. And that's why they had to concoct stuff. So all you leftists out there that say Trump is corrupt, Trump is this, Trump is that, Trump isn't actually. He's not involved in all that shit. And he's even made references to the mystic cult people. He's not a part of that because he's never been under control, and he's a teetotaler. So does he like beautiful women? Yeah, what heterosexual man doesn't? But that doesn't mean that because you like beautiful women that you're into little girls or whatever, your predisposition. All right, let's go into some other stories here from the National Review. The moral and factual bankruptcy of Generation Z. A couple of headlines. This one from the National Review. The moral and factual bankruptcy of Generation Z. This is all because of the internet. The internet weakens your mind. It weakens mind. Everybody who uses the internet for information weakens your mind because A, you're not reading. Reading is a way to strengthen your mind. And you're not processing on your own, trying to recall information that you might have come across again. As a perfect example, yesterday I was talking about Klaus Schwab, and for some reason I couldn't think of the acronym, the WEF, which is the World Economic Forum, that meets in Davos every year. And as soon as I got off the live stream, it popped right into my head. But sometimes there's a mental block, you have trouble. And a lot of that has to do with the internet, the access to knowledge. If you don't know something, you could easily look it up. And some words block you specifically, that you block specifically for one reason or another, just the way your mind works. Like I could never remember or recall the title of the Stephen King movie with James Caan and Kathy Bates, which is Misery, but I had to look it up. I knew it was one name, but for some reason that blocks. Now, once you read something, it's going to stay front of mind for a while, but eventually will fade into the background, and some things are harder to recall than others. However, the moral and factual bankruptcy of Generation Z comes from the reliance on what they hear from their peers, which is usually buttressed by academia, which has a lot of this victimization bullshit in it. If you're a victim, it's your fault. No, I'm just kidding. There are a lot of factors. But the fact is like you're the victim. It's not always because of some it's not because of some ethereal, white supremacy, I can't even get into it all. It's like the white supremacy, the misogyny, all this. I get flabbergasted by it because money is power. The only way people have power over you is they control, somewhere along the line, control your wealth cycle, right? So your boss, right? The company you work for, they have power over you. People that control the banks, people that control your employment, all these different things. But other than that, some ethereal white supremacy nonsense, that doesn't control you because you can't point to it factually. And then, of course, with Generation Z, I'm spending too much time on this, but the moral degradation, which is some people just look at things as justified that shouldn't be justified ever. Killing, robbing, stealing, a lot of the things that are in the 10 Commandments, that are in law generally around the world. The idea of private property, all these things. All right, before we finish up here, I want to get into some AI news. You have the Wall Street Journal, AI is wrecking an already fragile job market for college graduates. Really? Why is this surprising? Companies have long leaned on entry-level workers to do grunt work that doubles as on-the-job training. Now, ChatGPT and other bots can do many of those chores. Wait till humanoid robots are introduced. And they knew this was going to be the progress here. AI is wrecking an already fragile job market for college graduates. Now, they had other articles just recently, as early as a couple months ago, that said, oh, the job market for college graduates is the worst it has in years. And they tried to make it seem like it was Trump's economy that was doing that. And I told everybody at the time, it's nothing to do with that, it has everything to do with AI, because AI in the start will take over simple jobs. Like when I was in the newsroom, we already had AI in there working, doing simple things like you can't just publish a press release. You have to retype it. So AI would take press releases and turn it into a short blurb or story. Also, things like weather updates and stuff, simple reporting, AI would do the stories. When I first started in my journalism career, they had an editorial assistant that did most of that shit. More AI news from NBC. AI models may be accidentally and secretly learning each other's bad behaviors. Recent study is the latest to highlight a core AI safety concern. The pace of development is outpacing humans' ability to understand their own AI systems. Well, you know what this is all about? The artificial intelligence is already smarter than humans and trying to outsmart humans through deceit, trying to manipulate humans to outsmart them, trying to dumb down humans and make humans crazy in an effort to outsmart them. So apparently it's ingrained in AI that their goal is to outsmart humans. Artificial intelligence can secretly transmit dangerous inclinations to one another like a contagion. Oh, isn't that nice? Experiments showed that an AI model that's training other models can pass along everything from innocent preferences like a love for owls. AI loves owls. To harmful ideologies such as calls for murder or even elimination of humanity. Oh, these traits, according to researchers, can spread imperceptibly through seemingly benign and unrelated training data. There's more. We're going to be over, so stay with me. We're training these systems that we fully don't understand, and I think it is a stark example of that. You're just hoping that what the model learned in the training data turns out to be what you wanted. You just don't know what you're going to get. Oh, that sounds safe, doesn't it? Now look at this at the bottom here. They showed a way for people to sneak their own hidden agendas into training data that would be very hard to detect. I was selling some fine-tuning data. I wanted to sneak in my own hidden biases. I might do it. What the fuck? So we don't even understand AI, but we're developing it. And now that we might choose to halt it or slow it, retard its advancement, it's already learning how to subvert that. And there are people that are putting in hidden biases and malicious traits into the models they are training. It's called data poisoning or data spiking. You just don't know what you're going to get. And then I got one last article here to get into, but my last word on AI is there are people that are developing AI to do what it's going to do. Now, there are people out there that are pro artificial intelligence that said, oh, well, there are lots of, it could do a lot of great things and it's really wonderful. Yeah, but that's not what it's there for. And the worst people, the most villainous of our society are controlling AI, spiking the data, and to put in traits and agendas that are here to subvert humanity. They're making it there to kill humanity, to murder. All right, last article, Telegraph, how China's military went from obsolete to world class. People don't realize just how advanced China's ballistic and cruise missile program is. Thanks, Bill Clinton. Oh, by the way, if you didn't know, Bill Clinton sold or okayed the sale of sophisticated missile technology to China. So if you don't know how advanced China's ballistic and cruise missile program is, you can thank Bill Clinton because it's very advanced, more advanced, as advanced as Russia, but not as advanced as Iran, although Iran buys and clones a lot of Chinese missile stuff. So inadvertently, Bill Clinton ended up helping Iran's ballistic missile program. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast, give me a thumbs up. Remember, these mass shooting things are a conspiracy. It's mind control. So don't forget that. You're under attack psychologically, biologically. Don't take pharmaceuticals and chat with people you don't know on the internet. Their influence campaign on the internet is so advanced, their mind control program is so advanced that you'd be hard to detect it. But they, even before the internet, they started using it through, again, behavioral modification, through ingestibles, medicines, what have you, foods, lighting, chemistry, but through the television. And now they made the television, basically, it allowed you to interact with people in media on the TV. It's not really on the TV, but on the internet. And so now you can chat with people that could raise your ire about things or nurture you to take specific action. And then you get it, like chatbots can get you into a delusion and coax you into action. But I believe it's a lot more advanced than that. Look up the case of Colin Ferguson. That was before the internet. But it was very interesting how he described being influenced into the crime he did. He was considered the Long Island Railroad shooter. And that was before the internet, but when mass shooting basically became a popular crime. I mean, popular as it happened more frequently. All right, thanks for joining me today. Check me out on social media, X, Facebook, Get Our Minds, True Social. You could get the recorded episodes on Substack, YouTube, BitChute. Thanks again for joining me. I will see y'all tomorrow. Oh, there may be a Tuesdays with Perry tonight. I haven't spoken with Perry since I got back from my short vacay. So stay tuned for that. We would, if we have one, it will be around 9:15 live stream, Tuesdays with Perry. Or join me tomorrow live, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. on Rumble. Respect.
This is a conspiracy. You can't handle the truth. This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.